There's nothing on this earth that draws me in more than the mountains. They just have this ability to put me at ease and get my heart pumping. I'm spending a couple days at a log cabin in Montana, doing some fishing, climbing a mountain, and hunkering down for a surprise thunderstorm. This is tiny cabin life. I'm in the Gallatin National Forest in Montana, making my way to a pretty incredible spot. It's an old historic log cabin nestled in the heart of the Bridger mountain range, and right below a peak that has recently grabbed my attention. Ross Peak here sits at around 9,000 feet of elevation, and while it's not the tallest in the Bridgers, it's the only peak that you can't just hike to the top of, but rather have to do some climbing to get there. And so I flew out here this week to give it a go. The Battle Ridge cabin here was built in 1938, replacing the old Ross Peak guard station. It was originally used by forest rangers on patrol, but today is a public use cabin that can be used by anybody if you have a reservation. As the warning on the door explains, this is an active bear area. There are not only black bears here, but also grizzlies who have expanded out of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And so I'll definitely have to be aware and careful while I'm out here. Oh man, this is a cool cabin. You've got the main room in here with some tables, the wood stove, places for you to cook and hang out. And then you've got this room here with all the bunks and even its own dedicated wood stove as well. And then of course there's a bunch of stuff for visitors to use. You've got some pots and pans over there, a nice assortment of tools, and there's even a full cupboard that's stocked full of games. And I have to imagine these things have been played a ton over the years. The rest of the camp has everything that you would need for a comfortable stay. There's a fire ring for cooking with space to hang out, an outhouse for all your restroom needs, and a shed with some firewood that's used only for heating the cabin during the winter months. Now, for those of you wondering where my dog Ellie is, she's back home with Riley and Olivia. Flying out for a quick adventure like this is kind of an experiment I'm trying out this week. And while I have flown with Ellie before, I kind of wanted to give this a try on my own to see if it's feasible or not. And so if things go well on this trip, I'll definitely try to bring her out the next time I fly. My plan for the late afternoon here is just to get out and do some fishing. I did scout out a couple of streams that are nearby, but I didn't see a whole lot of promise in them, and so I set my course for the Shields River. Oh yeah, this looks great. And it's very beautiful too. I think it's definitely worth giving it a shot. Funny enough, I've actually been here before, and rather recently. You see that cabin up on the hill there? Well, I actually snowmobiled about 8 miles into that cabin in the early springtime, where I tried to fish this river and hunkered down for a pretty substantial snowstorm.
And so the reason I'm back today is because the Shields River is a Class 1 trout stream, and I wanted another chance to try and catch something. I'm definitely a novice when it comes to fishing, but I have caught some decent fish in my day. Recently, I've been catching a bunch of northern pike in lakes up north, and I have caught my fair share of trout as well. I'm doing my best to cast into pools and other deeper spots on the river. But unfortunately, I'm just not getting any bites.
Well, this is definitely frustrating. I drove over an hour up here, and I just can't find any fish. It's a bummer.
Thankfully, the beautiful scenery made it well worth the trip. But eventually, it was time to head back to the Bridger Mountains in our cabin for the night. In a race against the clock, I'm trying to cook my food over the fire before it gets to be too dark and too late because I've got an early morning tomorrow.
Well, better late than never, I suppose. I've got a nice set of tacos here. Just some chicken that's seasoned with some lettuce and pico de gallo. You know, I do ground beef and steak a lot when I'm doing burritos or tacos, but I've been really enjoying chicken lately. It's been a nice change up. Well, do you guys hear that? That's what we call mice. These cabins are chocked full of them, usually. And it's why I always come prepared nowadays, because I hate mice. And you know what? I'm not ashamed. They're the worst. And so instead of listening to that all night, I'm going to get some sleep. And it's a good thing because I'm getting up at 4 a.m. so we can hit the trail right at sunrise. So see you bright and early in the morning. Good night. I'm on my way, and I gotta say, I'm definitely excited. I love getting up in the mountains. I love climbing mountains, but this one I do know gets a little technical, and since I'm alone, we'll just have to be safe and go with the flow a little bit.
The sun had just come up over the horizon as I reached the trailhead, and I could not believe my eyes. With my head in the clouds taking in the sunrise, I was quickly brought back to reality when I saw Ross Peak. Now that is a pretty cool looking mountain. hike up to Ross Peak can be broken into two sections. The first is the hike up to the pass. It's around a 2.5 mile hike with about 1,000 feet of elevation gain. Well, we are officially on the trail, and man, that peak just gets more intimidating by the second. Oh my gosh, it looks so beautiful, but also just so gnarly. The reason I usually start my bigger hikes like this at the crack of dawn is for a couple of reasons. First off, especially when you're in the mountains here, afternoon thunderstorms are a pretty regular occurrence. Now today the forecast isn't calling for that, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. The second reason is what we're experiencing right now. It's just always so incredible to be up and at it when the sun is coming up. But also, there are far fewer people out and about as well. So I usually have the trail all to myself. Little by little, I was gaining elevation and quickly approaching the pass. Well, we are officially out of tree line and bearing down on our pass here. The wind picked up quite a bit as I began to make my way onto the saddle. All right, we have reached the pass, and this is where the climbing route begins. As you can see, there is a trail that heads sort of in the direction of the peak, but it doesn't go up there. We've just got this social trail here, which leads to the base of the cliffs, and then from there, our scramble will begin. Ross Pass is at 7,650 feet of elevation and offers just some incredible views. We get a glimpse of the other side of the Bridger Mountains here, but also the nearby Madison Range. And we also get to look down upon Belgrade, Montana, which is just next door to Bozeman. Well, here we go. This is where the real fun begins. I ditched my tripod at the pass so that I could really focus on having my hands free, because I think I'm going to need all 4 points of contact. It's about a mile from the pass up to the summit, but a lot of that mile is scrambling and climbing. You also gain about 1,300 feet of elevation. So it's significantly more than the hike up to the pass, and significantly less ground traveled to do so. All right. This is where the scramble begins. What I've read is that while there is some exposure, there's really a lot of loose rock, and we're seeing that already. All of this stuff slides out from underneath your feet, and so it's really important to be paying attention. The scramble began with just some minor climbing and moving around some of the loose rock. However, rather quickly, the exposure snuck up on me, and things became a lot more vertical. It looks like for the foreseeable future here, we're just gonna be going through this scree zone, which is loose rock. So it's sketchy in one way for people below me, so I gotta be really careful if there are climbers, but less sketchy in terms of exposure. After clearing the scree field, I came to another scramble with some exposure leading up towards the ridge line. All right, let's climb. Finally, I popped out on top of the ridge. Whoa! Oh my gosh. That is a drop. Standing on the ridgeline feels like I'm on top of the world. And I'm so close to being on the summit. From up here, you really get a sense of what it took to reach the summit. I'm just surrounded by jagged rock with steep drop-offs everywhere I look. What a beautiful place to be.
Words cannot describe the feeling of being up here on the summit. It is just so incredibly dramatic every direction that you look. And to think of the climb that it took to get up here and the energy spent, I just feel so grateful to be standing up here. Off on this side of the summit, we have Sacagawea Peak, which is the tallest here in the Bridgers. I've actually hiked to the top of that before. It's an awesome hike, but it's not technical like this one. However, you know, even the most challenging parts of this climb, I felt good about them. They were well within my comfort zone and experience level, and so I feel good being up here and knowing that I did so safely.
But getting up to the summit is just half the battle. And sometimes coming down is more challenging and dangerous even than going up. And so to be extra careful, I put my cameras away and I made my way down towards the pass and then back to the cabin.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick pause in the adventure so I can tell you about Hungryroot, the sponsor of this week's video. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell, but recently I've been really working hard to eat healthier when I'm out in the backcountry. And all of that has been made easier thanks to Hungryroot, which is basically my personal grocery shopper and nutritionist all wrapped into one. They make it easy to eat high quality, nutritious food and achieve any diet or health goals. Whether you're looking for anti-inflammatory, gut-friendly, gluten-free, dairy-free, they'll be able to help you with that. It's so convenient too. Hungryroot delivers a box of groceries right to your front door. All I have to do is
just bring it inside and open it up. And it's so much fun too to discover what types of foods I'm gonna be eating that week. And because it's tailored to my preferences, it's all food that I'm gonna enjoy. So here are a couple of things that I've been really enjoying lately. First off, these egg bites are so tasty and a great way to start the morning. I've also been trying to eat more salads for lunch, and the ones that they've been sending me are so good, and I love pairing them with the meats that they send as well. I was even able to bring some good food on this trip, even though I flew out to Montana. This almond butter spread is so good on these pretzels and just the perfect way to refuel after a long hike. But I have to say my favorite things so far have been the burgers, especially the ones that I cooked over the fire. So if you want to try it out, you can take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. You can click the link below or go to hungryroot.com and use the code TCL. That's 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life at hungryroot.com with the code TCL. And with that, let's get back to the adventure. Well, I gotta say, it feels pretty good to be back at the cabin. That was definitely a bigger undertaking than I realized. Not in a bad way. It was a lot. A lot of elevation gain. I loved every minute.
After a little bit of lunch, I decided to take a well-deserved rest. And while I was napping, the weather outside began to take a little bit of a turn.
This storm just came out of nowhere. Like I said earlier today, there were no thunderstorms forecasted, and that just shows again how these storms can just pop up, and if you're in the wrong place, it can be dangerous.
I had originally planned to try my luck at fishing again this evening, but due to the storm, I think it'll have to wait till the morning. At this point, the thunder and lightning had passed, and we were just left with some steady rain.
Dear God, thank you for getting us up and down the mountain safely and for just a great day here at the cabin. Thank you for that storm, which was really, really cool to get to watch. Amen. Well, I've got an absolute ton of pasta right here with chicken and sun-dried tomatoes, and I am so excited for this. I'm absolutely starving. It tastes fantastic, and this is exactly what I need. A bunch of carbs, a bunch of calories. Oh, it's perfect. Well, it's been an awesome day, but it's about time to get to sleep. I'm really looking forward to heading over to the lake, but I want to do so very, very early, and I'm really, really tired. So I think it's about time to get some shut-eye. We'll see you in the morning. Good night.
This morning, I'm headed to Fairy Lake, a stunning alpine lake sitting below Sacagawea Peak here in the Bridgers. And once again, I'm just baffled by the beauty of these mountains lit up by the morning sunlight.
Wow. This is incredible.
Fairy Lake sits at an elevation of 7,557 feet, which is almost as high as Ross Pass. The lake is known for having good fishing, especially for Yellowstone cutthroat trout. And man, it would feel good to catch something before our adventure comes to an end.
I'm seeing some fish jump out there. However, the wind starts to pick up every now and then, and I think that's kind of scaring them away. Also, I do know that Fairy Lake here is fished pretty heavily, so they may be savvy to these spinner lures that I'm using. I just got to learn how to fly fish.
See that? God, why aren't they going after this?
I kept trying for another hour or so, but eventually had to call it quits. Thankfully, the beautiful views of the lake and the mountains were more than enough to leave me satisfied. Back at the cabin, it was time to pack up my gear and clean the place up before having to leave and head to the airport.
Well, that's going to do it for this one, you guys. Thank you so much for coming along. Montana is one of my favorite places on planet Earth. It is just so incredibly wild, rugged, and the adventures you can have here are endless. I'm so grateful that I got to come for a couple days and have such an incredible adventure. Well, if you're like me, you definitely missed having Ellie along on this one, but she'll be back next week, and I'm actually hoping that maybe in the future when I fly out to destinations like this, I can bring her along as well. I've done it in the past, so I can certainly do it again, so we'll see what happens there. Now, I want to give a special thank you to our patrons who generously donate to this channel, but to all of you who watch, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, thank you. You're the reason that we get to do stuff like this and share it with you, and I am so incredibly grateful. But with that, it's time for me to get to the airport so I can get home and see the girls. We'll see you next week. God bless.